4.3 Smith's idealized picture of a capitalist system. Smith believed that lightly regulated capitalism was preferable to mercantilism based on how he envisioned a competitive market capitalist system working. The key difference between this system and mercantilism would be its effect on economic growth. Smith's economics book was titled The Wealth of Nations in large part because he sought to analyze the determinants of wealth. Smith's first important insight was that wealth comes from productivity, not from money, gold. Money is only useful if it can lead to a high standard of living, but a country's standard of living is determined by how productive it is, how many goods and services it can produce and consume, not how much money it has. A country that has lots of gold but produces very few goods will quickly find that the prices of those few goods are very high. But a country that is very productive will be able to consume lots of goods and services, no matter how much money it has. The fact that countries today use gross domestic product, which is the total production of goods and services in an economy, to measure the standard of living of people in an economy is a testament to Smith's enduring insight. Second, Smith identified the importance of the specialization of labor in enhancing productivity and wealth. As noted before, the specialization of labor occurs when particular tasks are performed by specific individuals, rather than everyone performing all tasks. This enhances productivity for three reasons, according to Smith. First, workers get better at their job, improving their skill and dexterity, when they specialize in one task instead of many tasks. Second, less time is spent moving from one job to another. Third, specialization leads to the invention of machines that facilitate and replace labor. The last of these tends to be the most important driver of increases in productivity. A good example of the importance of specialization comes from the car industry. The first cars were produced by teams of skilled craftsmen and entrepreneurs. But once entrepreneurs divided the manufacturing process into discrete tasks and developed specialized machinery, the manufacturing process became much more productive. Each car part could be manufactured using a specialized process, which was subdivided into a series of even more specialized tasks. In Figure 4.2, we see workers on the first moving assembly line in 1913 assembling magnetos and flywheels, which was a part of a Ford car. Another crucial insight in Smith's analysis was the importance of competition in making markets work efficiently and fostering growth. In the absence of competition, monopolistic companies could produce shoddy products and charge high prices because consumers had no other options. These companies also had no incentive to invest in new technology or products since they could continue to make profits indefinitely without fear of new competition. Additionally, they could pay workers very little because other companies were not competing to hire workers. Competition changes all of this. Competitive markets tend to generate better quality, lower prices, more innovations, and higher wages. Ideally, Smith hoped, competition would even regulate incomes and benefit the poor, solving the huge poverty problem of the day. Smith envisioned the pattern unfolding as follows. 1. Bold entrepreneurs, trying to get ahead of their competition, engage in risky innovations, such as creating a new product or designing a more cost-effective method of production, technology. 2. If effective, the new product or technology yields substantial economic, above normal, profits and the business expands. 3. Timid entrepreneurs, once they see that the innovation is effective, copy the new product or imitate the new technology, causing new firms to enter the market to compete with the bold entrepreneur. 4. The entrance of more competition increases the supply of the product, lowering the price and eliminating the excess profits earned by the bold entrepreneur. 5. The industry as a whole experiences economic growth as multiple businesses expand operations as a result of building the new product or utilizing the new technology. 6. This process tends to limit the incomes of the rich via competition and raise the standard of living of the poor because goods prices are kept low and demand for workers increases as industries expand. The result, according to Smith, is that a much more equal distribution of income would result in this capitalist economic system than was the case under mercantilism. In highlighting the importance of competition, Smith also identified self-interest as a useful component of a market capitalist economy. The dynamic entrepreneurs of his era were providing essential goods and services to society, but they were doing so for selfish reasons, to make a profit. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker, that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own estimated. We address ourselves, not to their humanity but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities but of their advantages. 2. Smith. The profit motive, in the presence of sufficient competition, was a positive force providing the essential goods that society wanted and leading to economic growth in the process. Along with competition, Smith believed that moral sentiments and a system of justice were key regulators of the competitive process. In his first important book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, Smith states, "How selfish soever man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature, which interest him in the fortune of others, and render their happiness necessary to him." Smith evidently saw people as both self-interested and interested in the welfare of others. Along with moral sentiments, Smith envisioned a government which had the duty of protecting, as far as possible, every member of the society from the injustice and oppression of every other member of it, or the duty of establishing an exact administration of justice. Combining these crucial ideas, to Smith, a self-interested entrepreneur who a. operates in a competitive market, b. cares about the welfare of others, and c. is prevented by law from exploiting others would tend to serve the public interest by producing good products at low prices, innovating regularly, fostering economic growth, and benefiting the poor. This led Smith to his famous analogy of the invisible hand of the market. As every individual endeavors as much as he can both to employ his capital in the support of domestic industry, and so to direct that industry that its produce may be of the greatest value, every individual necessarily labors to render the annual revenue of the society as great as he can. He generally, indeed, neither intends to promote the public interest, nor knows how much he is promoting it. By preferring the support of domestic to that of foreign industry, he intends only his own security, and by directing that industry in such a manner as its produce may be of the greatest value, he intends only his own gain, and he is in this, as in many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was no part of his intention. Nor is it always the worse for the society that it was no part of it. By pursuing his own interest he frequently promotes that of the society more effectually than when he really intends to promote it. This was a powerful and counterintuitive claim. Self-interest, via the competitive market system, can end up benefiting society more effectively than intentionally benevolent acts. Consider this idea carefully and evaluate whether or not you think it holds true in our world. Given what Smith actually said about capitalism, as described above, it is interesting how many commentators cite the portion of Smith's work on self-interest without acknowledging the other crucial components of the system that Smith discussed. Smith only mentioned the invisible hand once in The Wealth of Nations, so selecting this metaphor as the key to understanding Smith's work is questionable. Smith was also a strong advocate of reducing regulations on imports and exports. He thought that with less regulated trade companies could sell goods to a larger market, foreign as well as domestic consumers. This in turn would allow companies to increase the size of their factories, leading to greater specialization, the development of new machines, and ultimately greater productivity and economic growth. Smith thought that the result would be an improvement in everyone's standard of living as productivity increases resulted in lower prices and greater quantities of goods. Despite Smith's distrust of government, which in his day acted on behalf of monopolistic interests rather than promoting the public welfare, Smith still saw a limited role for government policy. Smith's approach to government regulation is termed limited laissez-faire because he did envision a few limits being placed on market capitalism. First, as noted earlier, Smith wanted the government to establish a strong system of justice to protect every member of society from injustice and oppression. Second, the government needed to maintain order and provide for national defense. Third, the government needed to provide public goods, including roads, harbors, and education, all of which contribute to commerce and the functioning of the market. Smith wanted greater investment in human capital via education. Without such efforts, Smith feared that most people would be poor and would have mindless jobs. Also, he hoped that education would lead to more innovations, possibly generated by workers themselves, and increase productivity. Smith believed firmly that limited laissez-faire capitalism would be a better, more egalitarian system than mercantilism. Smith's goal was to see a society that was so productive that there would be enough for the slothful and oppressive profusion of the great, and at the same time abundantly to supply the wants of the artisan, the laborer, and the peasant. In these words we see Smith's disdain for the rich and powerful of his era, and his hope that capitalism would lead to a better world. Such an idealistic vision was very powerful, especially in the face of ongoing problems of the mercantilist economies. The mercantilist governments in England had attempted to alleviate the plight of the poor with a series of welfare programs and wage subsidies beginning around 1600, but these programs came under attack in the early 1800s with the rise of the philosophy of laissez-faire.